The chamber of the Galactic Council was built to remind every species of their smallness. Its ceiling stretched so high that clouds drifted within, vapor swirling around hovering banners of empires that had stood for millennia. Columns of living crystal pulsed with faint light, carrying energy from the planet's core to sustain the hall. The very walls seemed alive, humming with resonance as though the stones themselves remembered every decision made within them. It was here, in this cathedral of power, that humanity made its final plea. Secretary Michael Harrington stood at the center of the amphitheater floor, beneath the unblinking eyes of more than 1,000 alien delegates. The man was tall for his age, his dark hair streaked with gray, his hands folded neatly in front of him. To the casual eye, he looked calm. But sweat clung to his collar, and his jaw clenched with the effort to hold back the tide of anger threatening to break through his diplomatic mask. Above, tiered rows of alien representatives shifted restlessly. Wings rustled. Mandibles clicked. Long tendrils coiled and uncoiled. To them, humanity was an upstart child shouting in a room of elders. Harrington's voice cut through the murmurs. Esteemed counselors, he began, his tone carrying the careful cadence of one who had practiced this speech in mirrors, in war rooms, in the silence of sleepless nights. Earth comes here not as conquerors, not as rebels, but as seekers of peace. We have endured raids, we have endured sabotage, we have endured slaughter. And still, we have come, hoping to find reason here. A low murmur rippled through the chamber. From one of the central seats rose Cherval of the Vare Dominion, towering above his dais. His kind resembled armored predators, their carapaces ridged with spikes, their mandibles serrated like knives. When Cherval's compound eyes fixed on Harrington, it was with the casual focus of a beast studying prey. You speak of peace, Cherval hissed, his voice translated into dozens of tongues at once by the orbs floating overhead. And yet your colonies breed like vermin across the stars. You spread. You consume. You build without permission, without respect. And when your betters correct you, you dare whimper about fairness. The alien leaned forward, his massive claws clacking against the railing. You were given your place. Stay in it, or be erased. Gasps, mutters, and approving growls broke across the chamber. Many empires had grown tired of humanity's presence. To them, the Vare spoke not just their own truth, but a universal disdain. From the balcony above, General Rebecca Cole's fingers dug into the railing. She was not here as a delegate but as an observer, dressed in the sharp black uniform of Earth's Defense Command. Her steel-gray eyes followed every word, every reaction. She needed to hear the truth spoken aloud. Was there even a thread of hope left for peace? On the chamber floor, Harrington drew a breath. He could feel his pulse hammering in his ears, but his voice was steady. 12,000 lives, he said softly. The words cut like a blade through the noise. That's how many were lost on Titan Colony when the Vare burned our domes. Families asphyxiated in their beds. Children suffocated in their schools. Infants clawing at failing oxygen seals while your soldiers laughed. A hush fell. Even among the council, there were some crimes that still clung to memory. We forgave once, Harrington continued, his voice rising. We forgave when Proxima Station was destroyed, 7,000 souls turned to ash. We forgave when our diplomats were slaughtered on Athen Prime, cut down on the very steps of your palaces. We forgave because we believed peace was still possible. He turned slowly, his eyes scanning the tiers of alien leaders, forcing each to meet his gaze. But understand this, humanity's patience is not weakness. It is choice. And choice can end. A ripple of unease moved through the chamber. Cherval rose again, slamming a clawed fist against his dais. The sound reverberated like thunder. Enough of your insolence. The Vare do not parley with prey. You come here begging for mercy that does not exist. Your colonies will fall, your fleets will burn, and your species will kneel or vanish. A roar of approval erupted from his faction. Other delegates shifted uneasily, some emboldened, others visibly disturbed. But the words hung in the air like poison. General Cole exhaled sharply. She had her answer. On the floor, Harrington felt a strange calm settle over him. The begging was done. The last thread of hope had snapped. Slowly, deliberately, he reached into his jacket and pulled free a small silver disc. The counselors tensed, some guards raised weapons, but Harrington merely placed the disc on the floor. It glowed, expanding into a shimmering hologram that filled the chamber. The face of Earth's president, Laura Keene, materialized. She was a woman carved by grief and sleepless nights, her eyes shadowed but fierce, her voice steady with the weight of a world behind her. "This is President Laura Keene of the United Earth Directorate," her voice boomed, translated into every tongue. "This is our final appeal. We have endured slaughter, enslavement, desecration of our homes. We begged you to stop. We pleaded for coexistence. You answered with contempt and with blood." Her eyes swept the chamber, piercing even through the holographic haze. "So hear us now. The age of humanity's pleading is over. The age of our retribution begins." The hologram blinked out. Silence followed, thick, suffocating, electric. Harrington bowed his head for a brief moment, then straightened. Without another word, he turned and walked toward the great doors of the chamber. His footsteps echoed in the vast silence. From the balcony, General Cole moved to follow, her boots striking sharp against the crystalline stairs. She kept her eyes forward, not sparing a single glance at the alien delegates. Behind them, the chamber erupted. Voices clashed in chaos, some shrieking threats, others roaring in outrage, still others whispering in sudden fear. The sound swelled into a storm, but Harrington and Cole never looked back. As the great doors closed behind them, sealing away the chamber's fury, Cole finally spoke, her voice low. "That's it, then." Harrington nodded once. His eyes were hard now, stripped of hope. They wanted an answer. We just gave it to them. And as the echoes of chaos faded behind, the message hung unspoken between them. Humanity's last plea had been denied. Now, the galaxy would face what came next. The void between stars was silent, but silence did not mean peace. At the edge of Epsilon Eridani, space rippled with the presence of war. 200 Vare warships had gathered, a wall of living metal bristling with weapons, their black armored hulls reflecting starlight like a swarm of predators. They came to crush the forward colonies of Earth, to make a spectacle of humanity's extinction. From the bridge of the flightship Carvash, Admiral Rankol observed the star system with cold precision. His compound eyes glinted as he studied the tactical displays, where Earth's colonies were represented by fragile specks of blue. Weak. Defenseless. Soon to be consumed. "Begin advance," he ordered, his mandibles clicking with satisfaction. "Scour them from the stars." The Vare fleet surged forward, confident in numbers, certain of victory. But waiting in the dark was something they had never faced. General Rebecca Cole stood at the command deck of the UNS Retribution, her hands clasped tightly behind her back. The human dreadnought was a monster born of desperation, 100 times heavier than Earth's first-generation warships, armored with hybrid alloys stolen and reverse-engineered from conquered alien tech, powered by a singularity core that pulsed like a caged star. The bridge was alive with tension. Tactical screens glowed, officers whispered into comms, and the low hum of the core resonated beneath their boots. The crew knew they were outnumbered. They also knew something the Vare did not. "Fleet reports ready, General," said Commander James Rourke, her second-in-command. His eyes were sharp, his voice steady, but Cole caught the slight tremor in his fingers as he adjusted his headset. He had fought in skirmishes before. But nothing like this. Cole's gaze hardened on the display. Red Icon's alien ships swarmed toward their position, filling the void like a tide of locusts. She spoke in a voice that carried across the bridge, calm and ironclad. "They expect prey. Today, we teach them the truth." Rourke swallowed, then gave the nod. Message prepared. Cole's eyes never left the tactical screen. "Send it." Across the void, every alien channel crackled with static. The Vare fleet's comms went dead as a jamming signal cut across their frequencies. A single phrase repeated, burning into every receiver, every display, every ear. "We tried peace. Now you'll witness humanity's retribution." A ripple of confusion tore through the Vare command lines. Admiral's Rancole hissed, mandibles flaring. Where did that come from? Locate them. And then the void lit up. Human ships emerged from the dark like ghosts. Cloaked frigates dropped their veils, cruisers revealed their glowing cannons, and carriers launched waves of drones that streaked forward in swarms of white fire. The UNS Retribution fired first. Its singularity lance ignited with a scream of energy, spearing across the black and ripping through a Ver battleship. The vessel's armored body twisted, bent, and finally tore apart in an instant, its two halves drifting lifeless into the abyss. Direct hit, cried the weapons officer. The bridge shook as cheers erupted, but Cole's voice cut through. Stay focused. We're not done. Rail cannons thundered from the human fleet. Slugs accelerated to near-light speed, punching through Ver shields as though they were paper, turning cruisers into fireballs of molten debris. Drones darted between the larger ships, weaving impossible patterns, firing plasma bursts into weak points the aliens had never imagined vulnerable. The Ver fired back beams of emerald energy, swarms of missiles, plasma storms, but the humans moved differently. Their ships didn't stand in trade blows. They darted, feinted, broke into packs and rejoined, fighting like wolves rather than machines. Every strike was calculated. Every sacrifice purposeful. On the bridge of the Retribution, Commander Rourke whispered under his breath, "God help them," as another alien destroyer burst apart under a rail slug. Cole didn't move. Her eyes tracked the battle with surgical precision, issuing orders with calm clarity. Alpha Wing, flank left. Beta Wing, cover the Retribution's aft. Fire singularity lances on my mark. Her crew moved with near-religious discipline. They had trained for this moment. They had bled for it. And now, humanity's wrath was unleashed. Minutes stretched into eternity. The void became a graveyard of shattered hulls and drifting fire. Their ships tried to regroup, but every formation crumbled under the relentless human assault. Admiral's Rancole slammed his claws against the console, mandibles dripping venom. Impossible. These creatures were primitives, they cannot. His words were drowned out as another shockwave rocked his flagship. The Retribution's rail slug tore through the Carvash's flank, shattering armor, spilling atmosphere into the void. Alarms screamed. The bridge lights flickered. For the first time in his career, Rancole tasted fear. He bared his fangs, trying to summon rage. Fall back. Fall back. But there was nowhere left to run. 20 minutes after the first shot was fired, silence returned to Epsilon Eridani. The Ver fleet was gone. Not scattered. Not retreating. Gone. 200 warships reduced to wreckage and ash. Human losses, 7 ships damaged, 1 destroyed. On the Retribution's bridge, the crew sat in stunned silence. The weight of what they had done, what they had unleashed, settled over them like gravity. For years, humanity had been the victim. Now, in less than half an hour, they had erased one of the galaxy's greatest fleets. Commander Rourke exhaled shakily, sinking into his chair. It's over. No, General Cole said softly. She stood tall, her eyes on the drifting wreckage. This was only the beginning. They thought us weak. Now they'll know better. And they'll fear us for it. She turned toward the comms officer. Transmit the message again. Make sure every empire hears it. The officer nodded, fingers flying over controls. Seconds later, across every frequency, the words carried once more. We tried peace. Now you'll witness humanity's retribution. News spread like wildfire. By the time the last pieces of Ver wreckage had cooled, transmissions were already racing across the stars. Empires that had mocked humanity fell into hushed silence. Colonies whispered in awe. Some species cheered quietly in hidden corners, having suffered their own under Ver tyranny. And in the Hall of Accord, Cherval of the Ver listened as reports confirmed the annihilation of his fleet. His claws trembled as the truth settled like poison in his veins. For the first time, the Predator knew fear. War did not creep. It did not whisper. It came like a storm breaking across the galaxy. After Epsilon Eridani, there was no more doubt. The myth of human weakness was gone. The story spread faster than light itself, 200 Vare warships destroyed in less than half an hour. Survivors spoke in hushed voices of human weapons that bent the laws of physics, of dreadnoughts that fought like gods, of soldiers who no longer begged for peace but came bearing fire. The galaxy trembled. Yet for humanity, the war was not about fear. It was about justice. From the bridge of the UNS Retribution, General Rebecca Cole stood as the fleet surged forward into Vare space. The tactical maps before her painted a galaxy on fire, red blips of enemy fleets, blue arcs of human advances, entire systems flashing with battles fought and won. Secretary Michael Harrington had joined the command ship after the Council's debacle. Though no soldier, he moved among them with grim purpose. His once polished diplomatic poise was gone, replaced by the face of a man who had watched olive branches burn to ash. 3 colonies liberated, he reported, his voice rough from sleepless nights. Dozens more are sending distress signals. Some of the lesser empires are backing away from the Vare quietly. They've seen what we can do. Cole nodded, eyes fixed on the stars. Good. Let them watch. Let them choose. But her jaw was set, her thoughts heavy. Every time a Vare fleet fell, every time a planet was freed, she felt the weight grow heavier. Because she knew where it was all leading. To the heart. To Vare Prime. The journey there was a march of fire. Human fleets struck with terrifying precision. Orbital platforms, long considered impregnable, cracked under rail slugs. Drone swarms tore through defensive lines. The Retribution's Singularity Lance ripped apart command ships in single strikes. World by world, the Vare Dominion crumbled. On occupied colonies, enslaved species wept as human soldiers broke their chains. On battlefields, human captains transmitted the same message to every enemy commander before the killing began. We tried peace. You would not listen. The words became a dirge across the stars. At last, the fleet arrived at Vare Prime. The homeworld filled the viewport like a great black pearl, oceans glistening beneath its thick atmosphere, cities stretching like scars across its continents. Dozens of orbital defense stations glimmered around it, encircled by what remained of the Dominion fleet. It was everything the Vare were: proud, ancient, arrogant. On the bridge, silence fell. Even the hum of machinery seemed to fade as every officer stared at the planet that had brought so much death. Harrington whispered, "This is it. No going back." General Cole's hands tightened behind her back. Her eyes were steel. There was never going back. The comms officer turned. Incoming transmission. They want to speak. For a moment, there was surprise. The Vare had never asked to speak before. Cole gave a curt nod. Put them through. The holoprojector flared to life. The image of Cherval appeared, his once proud form diminished. His carapace was cracked, his compound eyes shadowed with exhaustion. Behind him, the council chamber lay in ruins, its banners torn. Human, Cherval rasped, his voice brittle. You have proven your strength. Withdraw. Take your colonies. Leave our space. We will not pursue further war. Murmurs rippled through the human crew. For the first time, the Predator's voice carried not contempt, but fear. Harrington stepped forward, his face a mask of fury held tight by restraint. Now you want peace? After Titan? After Proxima? After every life you burned away? Cherval's mandibles clicked uneasily. War is costly. Even for us. We see now that you are not prey. Do not force us into extinction. Cole's gaze never wavered. You forced that choice on yourselves. She gave a nod. The hologram of Cherval vanished into static. And then, President Laura Keene's image appeared in his place. She stood on Earth, transmitted across light years, her face illuminated by the weight of command. People of Earth, she began, her voice steady and solemn. And to all who watch from afar, today marks the end of our silence. We begged for peace. We endured slaughter. We carried hope longer than any would expect. But hope without justice is surrender. And humanity does not surrender. Her eyes locked on the image of Ver Prime in the viewport. This is justice. Cole raised her hand. Her voice was low, but it carried like thunder. Fire! The Retribution roared. The Singularity Lance discharged, a spear of impossible energy that cut through the void. Shields that had stood for centuries shattered in an instant. The capital defense grid crumpled like paper. The lance struck the surface of Ver Prime, carving a scar of light across its capital continent. Cities imploded. Towers collapsed. The seat of the Dominion burned. The galaxy watched in silence as the Ver's pride turned to ash. Broadcasts carried the image to every world, some in horror, others in awe, still others in secret relief. For generations, the Ver had ruled through fear. Now that fear belonged to humanity. On the bridge, the silence was suffocating. Officers stared at the burning world, their faces pale. Some clenched fists in grim satisfaction. Others whispered prayers. Harrington's voice trembled with rage and grief entwined. It's done. But President Keene's image shook her head. No. It's not done. Not until they understand. She turned her gaze outward, her words meant for the stars themselves. Let all empires hear this. Humanity did not want this war. We did not seek conquest. But we will never again bow to predators. We will never again beg for mercy. If you come for us, if you come for our children, if you come for our homes, this will be your fate. Her final words landed like hammer strikes. We tried peace. Now you have witnessed our retribution. The war ended within days. The Ver Dominion collapsed, its fleets shattered, its leaders either dead or surrendering. The remaining empires scrambled to sign accords with Earth, their ambassadors suddenly filled with respect where once there had been only mockery. But for humanity, there was no triumphal celebration. There was only silence, heavy with memory. In orbit above Earth, aboard the Retribution, Harrington stood beside General Cole and President Keene. The stars stretched before them endless, unblinking witnesses. It's over, Harrington whispered, though even he didn't sound convinced. Keene's voice was soft but steady. No. It's a beginning. They'll remember this for centuries. They'll remember that we offered peace first. Cole's gaze hardened on the stars. And when peace was refused, we gave them retribution. Across the galaxy, on every frequency, the transmission repeated one last time. This is humanity's final message. We tried peace. You would not listen. Now you know our retribution. Remember it, or the stars will burn again. And the galaxy listened. Truly listened. For the first time, no one dared to silence humanity.